Do you believe that science is the pathway to knowing the truth of our reality? My name is Heather Feather, and today's topic is the science myth. We tend to, as people become more and more educated in my experience, articulate that science is where we obtain our facts about our reality. And it can be, and it's funny to say it this way, treated as if it's gospel in our reality. And what's funny about science is when we combine it with another topic called history, we start to recognize what it actually does, the rubber band effect of science through time, and the actual reality that many things that were considered scientific fact in our past have now become a mythology. And so Heather loves the truth and is constantly looking for the truth and looking to cull and cultivate in herself the truth. It is challenging. It is challenging in this realm because there are a lot of subtle ways where we can miss the mark by saying something is an absolute truth when it is not, taking an individual truth and applying it and smearing it on the globe as if it is an absolute truth. Truth is a tricky lesson to be super involved with, but I love it. And I love science too. My dad was very scientifically oriented in his mind. He was studying fuel cell technology and what was available regarding quantum mechanics before he died when I was a wee babe. So he was really, in my opinion, ahead of his time. And his daughter, Heather Feather, received in her own matrix with the DNA and RNA of such an amazing man, so much scientific thinking in her own way of being. And I love to question the foundation we begin from before we go to investigate and find answers, And so one thing that could be true, for example, is that this could be a dream that we live in, a sleeping giant's dream that just goes on forever for us, but for them, it's just a night, This could be a simulation. There are many theories that have been postulated by humanity about what is occurring here. And so it's possible that the foundational construct that we have of, I put it under my microscope and I proved it, may not be as factual, as clear, as connected to the truth as we might think. A fish doesn't understand that it swims in water. It just lives in its natural environment. And so if you were in a simulation, how would you know? How would you know if you're made of code, You are made of emptiness. Are you sure you're here, right? Science is a funny thing because what happens is it tends to, and this is its nature, is we're supposed to have a hypothesis, do the scientific method, test the hypothesis, and then come to a conclusion. And then if we're able to continue to test over time that hypothesis, and it continues to be true, then it is believed to be the truth typically. Well, the earth was flat, then it was round. Now it's a bit more ovular. And some are still arguing to this day that it's flat. And the vast majority of beings that know whether the earth is flat or round from experience, from their eyeballs being on the earth because they went to the space station and were shot up into space and looked back at it or went around it, or they got in a plane and went from here to here and never had a drop off in so many miles, which is, how far people are saying you can go before it drops off as a 2D plane. Even that concept of going into space and actually getting eyes on it, the nominal amount of people that have actually put their eyes on the earth and weren't handed a textbook or some online theories about what it is, the ones that had experience, the way we truly know. If you experience swimming, you truly know to swim. If you read about swimming, you know some stuff about swimming, but you don't truly know swimming, right? So these people that truly know, it could still be a dream. It could still be a simulation. It could still be a hologram, which is a 2D surface with light diffracted through it, right? It could be many different iterations of what is occurring. And so science doesn't really often like the more philosophical, daydreamy, imaginative component of playing with ideas because it's slated to prove through experimentation, in fact, very left hemisphere, very logic-oriented information. Some people can get wicked creative with it, and I appreciate it. What we found since I was a little girl, when I was in a science class, the desk was solid. Things were made out of weight and volume and matter, density. The desk is here. It is in the room. It is solid. What science says today, when we look at it through the lens of history, when we stretch the rubber band of science out, is that none of what I just said, which I was taught as a girl, is true. It's actually made out of 99.999999996% emptiness. If we but round up, are we so certain that it's here? And the thing that I want to consider when I'm considering scientific fact is that in the future, we will have different tools. In the future, we will have different instruments. In the future, we may have more knowledge. Potentially, could be idiocracy that's occurring slowly, who knows? But we might have greater intelligence. We have the propensity and capacity for that, as evolution tends to be the way things move from my perspective. But if we do evolve, we might find that what we believe now as fact is disproven. There are many things that have been considered scientific fact, the law and the way, that are mythology today. And so the reason I want to bring attention to this is that Heather often says we are all opinion sacks. And one of the primary things, there's a bunch of them, a bunch of primary lessons in here that I'm trying to work through, enlighten myself with and share with others. One of them is this concept that it is the ego that likes to be right. It is the ego that likes to be the knower. It is the ego that is the fool. Heather often says, I don't serve the ego, not mine and not other people's. And I have had a resplendent amount of opportunity to look like a fool, to look like a clown, to eat crow, and thank you so much, Spirit, for all the opportunity to not be attached to my inner clown such that I might be more connected to the inner temple, the ruler in the ruler chair of my beingness, you know what I mean? The light of my love and authentic truthness, instead of this clown that's like, please give me attention. I want to be right. I know everything. And humans do this. If you watch throughout history, applying it to topics like science, you'll find that people have often argued on topics like this. Einstein did not like quantum entanglement. He called it spooky action at a distance. Einstein was a genius, and there were many that probably took as gospel what Einstein said because he was a genius. And I love Einstein. He's taught me a ton of stuff, and I appreciate it. And he was disproven. Quantum entanglement is a real thing. There have been studies that have been done at Princeton. If 89 miles apart, there is still quantum entanglement between particles, which means two particles that connect. The spin of the quarks, which is inside of the subatomic particle, inside of the particle, the spin of the quarks will always be calibrated forever, even if they're separated at a great distance. And Einstein did not like that. He called that spooky action at a distance because he was like, no, they would need to, things are based on locality with physics. He was used to more Newtonian mechanistic physics, and a lot of the constructs being presented through quantum mechanics were defying the facts of physics. An example of that is Thomas Young's experiment in 1801 with the double slit experiment, which brought evidence that our consciousness is collapsing waves of probability, which is what all this emptiness is made of. Atoms are made of emptiness and everything's made of atoms, into particles, or into the world that we see, based on the consciousness that entered the room. And so when we look at science often, there can be a negation of spirit, a negation of the construct of consciousness, a negation of consciousness living beyond the grave, a negation of reincarnation, a negation of anything but that which can be proven. As we work with the scientific method and we test a hypothesis again and again and again so that we can prove something as a fact. And many people, whether you have the Fermi paradox or not, have experienced aliens. Cosmonauts, astronauts talk about it. Many people have abduction stories. So either all the people that have experienced aliens are psychopathic liars or drug addicts, and you're saying this of astronauts and cosmonauts, by the way, or the Fermi paradox is true, but it's, when we're looking at the truth, it's a tricky thing to do. Because often when we're holding something that we believe to be a truth, we might find if we look at the sea of information that is available, what we're holding is actually a myth. Are you sure that science is fact? And are you sure that you hold the truth? How many truths that you hold have you experienced yourself? You can always subscribe to Rare Bird Medicine on YouTube. Amun.